We are about to unpack one of the most perplexing and, frankly, disturbing cases in recent memory, the death of Jeffrey Epstein. It's so much more than a headline. It's really a rabbit hole that leads deep into a world of power, money, and some incredibly dark questions. So let's break down what we know, and maybe more importantly, what we still don't.
August 10th, 2019. You have to remember this date. This is the day the story went from being a massive scandal to a full-blown mystery, sparking a firestorm of speculation that, honestly, is still raging today.
And this is where it all happened. The Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan. We're talking about a high-security federal prison. A place that's supposed to be inescapable, where some of the most high-profile inmates are kept under constant, careful watch. Or so we were told.
And that brings us to the one central question that everything else really hangs on. Was this the desperate final act of a man who is about to face justice, or was it a calculated move by someone else to silence him for good? Suicide or murder?
So, the official story came out almost immediately. Jeffrey Epstein had died by suicide. But right from the get-go, the details surrounding his death just started raising all these red flags. For a lot of people looking at this, the official narrative just, well, it didn't add up.
To really get why this became such a massive controversy, you have to understand who Jeffrey Epstein was. He wasn't just some rich guy. He moved in the absolute highest circles of power. We're talking presidents, princes, billionaires. He collected powerful friends, and, it seems, their secrets.
And just to give you a sense of his mindset, listen to this. He reportedly told people he was into transhumanism and that he literally planned to have parts of his body cryogenically frozen. It just paints this picture of a man who truly believed he was above the normal rules of, well, everything, even life and death itself.
And here's the absolute crux of the matter. Epstein wasn't just facing justice for his own crimes. His testimony had the potential to bring down some of the most famous and influential people on the entire planet. The list of people who would have wanted him to stay quiet was very, very long and very, very powerful.
So, when you know all that, you can see why the official story of a simple suicide started to fall apart when people looked closer at the actual evidence.
And this is where it gets really strange. On one side, you have the official report, cut and dry, suicide by hanging. But then you look at the details from the scene. The two surveillance cameras pointed at his cell, they just happened to malfunction at that exact time. The two guards who were supposed to be checking on him every 30 minutes, they fell asleep for hours and then falsified the logs. And then there were the injuries on his body, which some experts said looked a lot more like he'd been strangled.
Yeah, the autopsy itself turned into this huge point of contention. It found multiple broken bones in his neck, including something called the hyoid bone. Now, forensic experts will tell you that breaking that specific bone is way more common in homicide by strangulation than it is in a hanging. So Epstein's family hired their own famous pathologist who looked at the evidence and concluded it pointed to homicide. And yet, years later in 2023, the Department of Justice put out a report that said, nope, no evidence of foul play. So you've got two completely opposite conclusions.
So what happens when you have a story that makes no sense, an official narrative that's full of holes, and a total lack of clear answers? Well, that's basically the perfect breeding ground for conspiracy theories. And in this case, boy, did they take off.
Two of the really big theories that emerged were these. First, the idea that Epstein was a key player in this massive, secret network of high-level abusers, and that the whole thing was protected by the government. The other major theory is that he was actually an intelligence agent from Mossad, Israel's spy agency, and his job was to gather blackmail on powerful people to shape American policy.
Okay, and we have to be super clear on this point. While these theories are up there and they get talked about a lot, they are still just that, theories. There's no official evidence, no hard proof that any of them are true. We're talking about them here because they're part of the story of what happened after his death, but that's not an endorsement.
So if you put the wild theories to one side, what are you left with? Well, you're left with a bunch of really profound, really unsettling questions that are still just hanging in the air years later. Questions that suggest this story is about something way bigger.
I mean, it's the first question you ask in any investigation, right? Who benefits? The second Jeffrey Epstein died, so did his testimony. Anybody on Earth who was scared of what he might say on a witness stand suddenly got to breathe a huge sigh of relief. And that list of people who benefited, well, it's long.
And then there's the whole issue of his private island, this place where unspeakable crimes happened. We know flight logs exist, we know people flew there, So why, after all this time, has a complete, unredacted list of every single person who visited that island never been released to the public? Who or what is being protected?
And this might just be the biggest question of all. Was Jeffrey Epstein just the one-off, a uniquely monstrous predator who used his money and connections to get away with his crimes? Or was he something more? Something like the public face of a much larger, darker network that is still operating out there in the shadows?
When it comes right down to it, this whole saga forces you to look beyond just one man's crimes. It feels like it pulls back the curtain on a hidden world where extreme wealth and power play by a totally different set of rules. A world where accountability is just optional, and where secrets are kept no matter the cost.
And that kind of leaves us with one last, chilling thought to chew on. We might never know for sure what happened in that jail cell, but the questions this case forces us to ask are what really stick with you. Because if all of this can happen, if a man this connected can die this mysteriously while in federal custody, it makes you wonder, what other truths about how the world really works are still hidden, right below the surface?